Are small criminal defense law firms facing extinction? Tune in to find out.
You are listening to the Prosper Law Podcast. Learn how to reduce stress, have more time, and make more money. Come on in.
I'm Greg McCollum, and I built a 7-figure criminal defense law firm. I formed Prosper Law to show criminal defense law firm owners who are desperate for success how to grow from under $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. Are small law firms facing extinction? Are criminal defense lawyers facing extinction? That's the question. And I haven't heard a lot of people say it that drastically, but I've been saying that or observing that for some time now. And people talk around it a little bit. But I think that criminal defense lawyers are some of the most important people in our society. And I have the highest respect for criminal defense lawyers who go through what they have to go through, where no one's for them, everyone's against them. People see where somebody was arrested and charged with something, they immediately, want the person dragged off to prison. Nobody ever says, hey, wait a minute, is this true? Or what are the circumstances? I have the highest respect for public defenders, assistant public defenders who are in these trenches, standing up to police officers who made a case and left the favorable part out of the police report because they're only looking for the evidence that supports their case. Prosecutors who sometimes are impatient and saying, well, the person just needs to plead. What are you talking about? With impatient judges who, just want to move on to the next case. So I have the highest regard for these people, especially the public defenders who they're in there every week. They're in there day after day. They have a lot of clients, that are incarcerated. So if you're a criminal lawyer, you know what a jail visit is like. You know how time consuming that is. I watch a lot of shows on Netflix and things like that, and I see these, lawyer shows or shows where it shows there's a lawyer involved, and I always have to laugh because, when they go to the jail and they go in the room to talk to the defendant or something like that, then when they finish talking, they stand up, and knock on the door, and there's a guard or somebody who's just been standing there waiting for 30, 40 minutes, just 50 minutes, can't wait to let them out of the room. Just the door pops open, and I understand it's television, but I just have to laugh every time I see that because that has not been my experience. When I'm finished talking to the client, then I stand up, I knock on the door, nobody's there, maybe there's a buzzer, and I buzz somebody, and they don't answer. And then we stand around maybe talking to the client or because I can't look at my phone because they won't let me take it in there. So it's just waiting. And a lot of criminal lawyers spend a lot of time waiting or wasting time because there's not responsive. Okay. And I understand the people that work at the jail, they're busy. They got something better to do. And then one of our jails here, to get out of there, there's like an airlock, where you buzz this door and they buzz you into another compartment and the door's closed behind you, and then you buzz them to open the other door. Okay. And sometimes you're in there and, you don't want to just buzz them too much because you're completely helpless. If you made somebody mad, they could just forget to buzz you out and you're just standing in that airlock for however long. Right. And so this idea that everybody's accommodating is just not true. And so all lawyers have to deal with that. And you know what? And we go to the jails and stuff. I mean, considering what the jailers and the people that work there have to deal with, I'm not saying they're not courteous. They are courteous. It's just, it's not like on TV. And if you're a criminal lawyer, you know that. So when I talk about law firms facing extinction, what I'm talking about is that the old model is gone. The old model of where you opened a law firm, you hung out a shingle, the people that you knew in your community, if they needed a lawyer, they'd call you. It's really gone, okay? And whether you like the internet, whether you love, Google searches or not, it's a fact of life. And so what I see is lawyers that are doing a lot of what I did, and that's looking for another way to make money because, they want to be a lawyer. They want to help people. It's their passion. But let's face it, they're not getting rich at it. Recently, I was listening to somebody, and they were talking about the average income for a small law firm. And this isn't criminal defense lawyers. This is all lawyers, whatever practice area, including, personal injury. The average law firm is making, I think the number was $147,000. Now, some law firms are making, tens of millions, and others are making less. So, but that was the average. So the real average is who knows how low that is, or the real, the unskewed average. So $147,000. And that's interesting to me because this person said, and that's gross income. Because I've wondered about that because I reference sometimes this ABA study or something like that where they said basically 67%, I think, of all lawyers make under $200,000 a year. And so it's never been clear to me if that's gross, or net. But it sounds like it's gross. And so of the 67% that make under $200,000, half of those people, like I think it was 32% or something like that, are under 100. And so this is really outrageous to me because here's somebody who, got themselves through college and they worked hard enough and studied enough and were responsible enough to make good enough grades just to get in law school. Then once they got in law school, they endured that, that grueling first year, and then the other 2 years after that, they graduated law school. So then, but that's not enough. So what? You graduated from law school. Now you have to take a test before we'll let you be a lawyer. So now you have to study for the bar exam. You study, 6 or 8 weeks or something, take a course to learn enough to make sure you can pass the bar exam. Then you sit for the bar exam. That's 2 or 3 grueling days. Then you wait for your results and you passed, okay? And you got to make sure you pass the ethics part 2, which is a different exam. And so now you're still not a lawyer. Now you have to, go through character and fitness where they're going to run an, background check on you and make sure that they're going to let you do it. And so, and they're pretty lenient with that from things that happened with people when they were younger, but it's still another step. So then after you do that, you're still not a lawyer. You go to a ceremony where you're sworn in, and then finally, now you're a lawyer. And so, but you don't stay a lawyer because you got to maintain your, legal education requirements. Because if you don't, they take away your law license or certainly suspend it temporarily. You have to pay for that. You have to go to that, and you have to pay your bar dues. Okay, so now you've done all of that versus somebody who didn't. And so I think a lot of lawyers in earlier times, they felt entitled, and justifiably so, because they did all that, and now they can help people, so they deserve to make a decent living. But that went away. It's gone. It doesn't matter anymore. Just the fact that you did all of that doesn't guarantee you anything. And I see it all the time with lawyers who try to open an office and they get to a point to where they're not making enough money to even pay for the rent and stuff. And so they close it, they end the lease, and then they practice on their cell phone. They practice out of their car. They practice at their house. because that's what it takes, to be successful for a lot of lawyers because of the things they don't know. It's like they're door dashing. Okay, that's all they can squeeze out of it, and I think that's terrible because they went through everything I just described, and I think they deserve a better life. But really, deserve has nothing to do with it, and it has nothing to do with it. Deserve has nothing to do with it. You have to find out what you don't know, find out that there are some answers, learn about the 7 parts of a law firm, learn about marketing and intake and sales, and learn about scaling and growing, because it's just a system. It's a recipe. It's not magic. It's just a recipe. But no one gave us the recipe. Nobody even told us there was a recipe, but there is. And I remember thinking about this from a long time ago, that this French philosopher, I think his name was Alexis de Tocqueville, he did a study of America, and I can't remember when it was. It might have been in the 1700s, or I think it was 1700s, late 1700s. So he came to America basically as a project, and he was supposed to write a treatise on America. And so he came and he visited America, and he went around, because coming from Europe, where they had the monarchy and they had the idea of, the royal family. And so a lot of that still existed in Europe. And so America was this grand experiment where they're going to have this republic, or democracy, as most people call it. And so you don't have aristocrats. You don't have them. And so when he studied American society, he said that the lawyers were the closest thing in America to aristocrats. And that was based on their standing in the community and their understanding of how the law shapes society, and their understanding of the keys to that. Because if you're a lawyer and you understand banking laws, or you're a lawyer and you understand the criminal justice system, or you're a lawyer and you know how to file a civil suit to right a wrong, you have this advantage over everybody else, because they just don't know that. As a lawyer, we forget it. We forget what we know. We forget that we have this understanding of it. But he really saw lawyers as this kind of aristocratic society, the closest thing that they had in Europe. And what he was talking about is that they were the people that understood society, understood the rules of civilization, and knew how to operate in that. Now, I don't know specifically if he thought that they were aristocrats in terms of income, but I think that's at least a small part of that, because they had the ability to generate money based on the value they could deliver based on their understanding. If you don't understand something, you go talk to a lawyer, they can explain it to you. That's very valuable. Just think about it. If you have a contract and you don't know, is this contract valid or not? If it's not valid and you're in business, you could be in a terrible mess. So who knows the answer? The lawyer knows the answer, and they know this about other things, and they have an understanding of it. So he saw them as having this kind of high position in American society. And I think probably that's ingrained in us. Certainly people my age and people before me saw it like that. Like, okay, you're going to go through this grueling process to become a lawyer, but so there's going to be some reward. They're going to have some ease of life, and you're going to have money flowing in. And I think that was true at some point, but no more. It's not true at all. And another friend of mine, her friend is a tattoo artist. Okay? And I'm not really seen his work. I don't have any tattoos. That's not something that I'm going to study or go get or whatever. I'm not a tattoo person. I think there are two kinds of people, tattoo people and people like me that aren't. Now, if people have tattoos, fine, that's great, whatever. But this guy's a tattoo artist. And my friend was talking about him and saying, you know what it said, Greg, you know what you have to have? Do you know what your overhead is if you're a tattoo artist? And I'm thinking, well, you have to have you have to have some kind of studio. You have to have all that kind of complicated equipment. First and foremost, you have to have the ability to be an artist. You have to have the ability to paint and create things that are beautiful and look good. But she said, you know what you have to have? I said, no, what? She goes, ink. That's their overhead. Ink. Okay. And because she was comparing that to what we do as lawyers or law firm owners. And you have to have more than ink as a tattoo artist. You have to have the ability to do it. And this particular tattoo artist apparently is quite good, and he does tattoos for people like pro athletes and different people. I don't know his clientele, but these people that will like get on a plane and fly to where he is to sit with him because he has a following. He apparently is pretty good at it. And so this friend of mine who has a law firm, she had hired a woman that I know who had been in the municipal court, like as an assistant prosecutor for the town. And then after that, she'd worked her way up. She was elevated to hold the position of judge or chief judge. And so she wasn't in that position long, but then she ended up leaving for whatever reason, retiring and going to work for my friend. And so the tattoo artist assumed that the lawyer that worked for my friend made $250,000 a year, because he had this kind of Alexis de Tocqueville view that that's what lawyers, that's what they are. They make $250,000 a year in their job practicing law. And if you look at the ABA numbers and the other numbers that I've heard where they're making $147,000 a year gross, they're not anywhere close to that. They're not even grossing what he thinks we make as lawyers. And a lot of lawyers kind of hide this and pretend to have more money than they have. And I understand that. I mean, it's embarrassing. And then lawyers think there's something wrong with them because they think maybe this other guy who just bought a new car, he's doing well. So there's all this kind of uncertainty and things that we go through. So the tattoo artist was kind of stunned when he found out what this lawyer was getting paid. And I think the person was getting paid, maybe six figures, maybe it was $90,000 a year or $80,000 with incentives or something like that. And he was stunned, and he said, any basic tattoo artist can make $150,000 a year. Okay? So, they could, it doesn't matter if you're a tattoo artist. It doesn't matter if you graduated high school. Certainly doesn't mean you had to go to college. You didn't have to go to law school. You didn't have to take a bar exam. I'm sure there's some health code or something that you have to understand so you don't, poison people and do things like that. So it's maybe a course you take, right? And so there's something, but why would anybody go to law school if they could be a tattoo artist and make the same money and then not have to deal with everything that we have to deal with? And this is the thing that I'm concerned about, because, if people like me don't show lawyers how to dig out of this, then what's happening to the legal profession? Who is going to help people? Who is going to be the person that defends people? because that's a crisis, and and the extinction. It's my understanding that people, are not applying to law schools in the same numbers, and it's creating some things in the legal industry where, people like me, it can be harder to find lawyers, and big firms, there's a shortage of lawyers, and there's some shrinking. So that could be, maybe that's good because, prices go up with fewer lawyers competing. Everything has a good side. But if the lawyers go extinct because in the modern society they cannot thrive, and then more and more I see people that just give up. They're tired of it. They can't take it anymore because the things that they have to endure, they have to get paid for it. They have to be able to buy their family something. They have to be able to take a vacation. They have to be able to get away from it, but then they can't get away from it. So it's a grind, and it grinds people down. Now, I lived it. I was there. And, my answer was to invest in real estate. And the real estate worked. And the reason it worked is because I studied, I read some books, learned some programs, and I did things. The reason the real estate worked for me and the law firm didn't is because with the real estate, it's easy. You buy something, you fix it up, you rent it, or you buy something, you fix it up and sell it. I knew what to do. With a law firm, to grow a law firm, one, I didn't know you could do it, and I didn't know how. So only after I learned how was I able to do it. And now I don't need the real estate anymore. I like real estate. It's kind of time consuming, but I don't need it anymore because I finally learned how to grow and scale a law firm. And you can too. So now I've told you can do it. I can show you how. Other people can show you how. Now the question is, are you going to do it or not? And it's hard. It's hard to do, and you'll go through some stress. But when you come out the other side, you'll be better off, and the legal profession will be better off. People that need you will be better off. And I think that's really important. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
If you want to know more, go to prosperatelaw.com. We show criminal defense law firm owners how to reduce stress, have more free time, and make more money. Thanks for listening.